Commander Zexthor stood in the bridge of his flagship, looking at the small blue planet below. His 4 eyes gleamed with amusement as he studied the data about Earth and its inhabitants. The humans were such a primitive species. They had barely managed to put a few stations in orbit around their own world. Their weapons were crude. Their ships were slow and weak. Most amusing of all, they couldn't even unite under one government. Hundreds of nations squabbled and fought among themselves like children. Zexthor's scales rippled with what his species considered laughter. In his 300 years of service to the Vornathi Empire, he had conquered 47 worlds. None had taken more than a few days to subdue. Earth would be even easier. The planet had resources his empire needed, and the humans would either surrender or be removed. It was that simple. He turned to his communications officer. "Send the message," he commanded. Across Earth, every screen, every radio, every communication device suddenly displayed the same image. Zexthor's alien face appeared, his translator making his words understandable in every human language. "Humans of Earth, I am Commander Zexthor of the Vornathi Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have 48 hours to surrender. Lay down your weapons. Abandon your orbital stations. Accept our rule. If you comply, you will be allowed to live as workers in our empire. If you resist, you will be eliminated. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact." The transmission ended. Across the planet, panic spread like wildfire. On the bridge of the Earth Defense Force vessel Harbinger, Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien commander's message for the 3rd time. He was a tall man with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had been in the military for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. Real aliens, a real invasion. It seemed impossible, but the massive fleet visible through the viewports proved it was very real. "Captain, we're receiving emergency orders," said Lieutenant Amy Brooks, his second in command. She was young, only 28, but she had proven herself capable in every crisis. "All EDF ships are to hold position and await instructions from Earth Command." Jake nodded. "Any word from the other nations' fleets?" "The same. Everyone's waiting to see what happens next." Amy looked at the alien fleet through the window. There were at least 200 ships out there, each one larger and more advanced than anything humanity had built. "Sir, what do you think we should do?" Jake didn't answer immediately. He knew what the smart choice was. Surrender, save billions of lives. Accept slavery under alien rule rather than face extinction. But something in his gut rejected that choice completely. Humanity had fought too hard, survived too much to simply give up now. "We fight," he said quietly. Amy smiled slightly. She had hoped he would say that. Down on Earth, world leaders gathered in an emergency virtual session. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals from every major nation argued frantically. Some wanted to surrender. Others demanded resistance. A few suggested trying to negotiate. The meeting went in circles for hours. Finally, the Secretary General of the United Nations spoke. "We've heard every opinion. Now we vote. Do we surrender to the Vornathi or do we fight?" The vote was close, but the result was clear. Humanity would not surrender without a fight. Commander Zexthor received the response 8 hours later. He had been resting in his quarters when his second-in-command woke him. "Commander, the humans have sent their reply." Zexthor activated the message. A human woman appeared on screen. She was old, with gray hair and a stern face. She spoke calmly but firmly. "Commander Zexthor, we have heard your ultimatum. The people of Earth have discussed your offer. Our answer is no. We will not surrender our world. If you want Earth, you will have to take it from us." Zexthor stared at the screen for a long moment after the message ended. Then he began to laugh. The sound echoed through his quarters. A strange clicking noise that his species made when they found something hilarious. These foolish humans actually thought they could fight the Vornathi Empire. It was the most absurd thing he had heard in decades. "They need a lesson," he said to his second-in-command. "A demonstration of our power. Target that abandoned station orbiting their moon, the one they stopped using 10 years ago. Destroy it completely." His second-in-command hesitated. "Commander, that station is abandoned. Wouldn't it be more effective to destroy something they actually use?" "No," Zexthor said, his amusement fading into cold calculation. "I want them to see what we can do without killing anyone yet. I want them to feel fear. Then when the 48 hours end, they will beg to surrender." The order was given. One of Zexthor's warships moved into position. A single beam of bright blue energy lanced out, striking the old space station. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the station exploded in a brilliant flash of light, debris spreading in all directions. The entire structure was vaporized in less than 3 seconds. On Earth, billions of people watched the destruction on their screens. The message was clear. The Vornathi could destroy anything humanity had built with almost no effort. On the Harbinger, Jake Morrison watched the station's destruction with a heavy heart. That station had been his first assignment as a young officer. He had spent 6 months there learning how to work in space. Now it was gone, erased as if it had never existed. "Sir," said Danny Cruz, the ship's pilot. He was a young man with quick reflexes and a talent for flying that bordered on supernatural. "What are we supposed to do against weapons like that?" Jake looked at his crew. Amy stood straight and determined. Danny looked scared but ready. The other officers and crew members watched him, waiting for an answer he didn't have. "We do what humans have always done," Jake said finally. "We survive, we adapt. We find a way." He paused, then added, "And we make them regret ever coming to our world." The crew didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. But something changed in their expressions. Fear was still there, but it was joined by determination. If they were going to die, they would die fighting. The 48 hours began counting down. Earth prepared for war. Commander Zexthor waited on his flagship, confident that the humans would surrender before time ran out. He had no idea how wrong he was about these strange, stubborn creatures who refused to accept the obvious truth that they were beaten. The countdown continued. War was coming, whether the Vornathi commander believed it or not. The 48 hours passed slowly. On Earth, people said goodbye to their families. Soldiers prepared their weapons. Engineers worked frantically to upgrade ships and defenses. Nobody slept. Everyone knew that when the deadline ended, everything would change. On the Harbinger, Jake Morrison walked through the ship's corridors. He saw crew members writing letters they hoped someone would find. Others prayed in their own ways. A few sat quietly, just thinking. Jake stopped to talk to each group, offering what comfort he could. He didn't promise they would survive. That would be a lie. Instead, he told them that whatever happened, Earth would remember them. When the countdown reached 0, Commander Zexthor expected a message of surrender. Instead, he received only silence from Earth. He waited 10 minutes, then 20. No communication came. The humans were actually going to make him follow through with his threat. He felt a mixture of annoyance and lingering amusement. Fine. If they wanted to be destroyed, he would oblige them. But he wouldn't use his full fleet. That would be wasteful. He would send just 30 ships to eliminate Earth's orbital defenses. That should be more than enough. Send the 3rd Assault Wing, he ordered. Destroy all human military vessels and stations. Leave civilian structures intact for now. Let's not waste useful infrastructure. 30 Vornathi warships broke formation and moved toward Earth's orbit. They were sleek and deadly, each one capable of destroying a human ship with a single shot. The human forces waiting for them looked pathetic in comparison. Outdated vessels, barely functional weapons, and shields that could withstand maybe 1 or 2 hits before failing. On the Harbinger, alarms blared as the enemy ships approached. Jake stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the command chair. All ships, this is Morrison. Remember the plan. Stay mobile. Use the debris fields for cover. Don't try to win a straight fight because we can't. Make them work for every inch of space. Amy coordinated the defense fleet from her station. 37 human ships against 30 alien vessels. The numbers looked almost even, but everyone knew they weren't. Each Vornathi ship was worth at least 5 human ones in terms of firepower and defense. The first shots came from the aliens. Blue energy beams lanced through space, striking 2 human frigates. Their shields flashed briefly, then failed. The beams cut through the hulls like a knife through paper. Both ships exploded, killing everyone aboard in seconds. Return fire, Jake shouted. Human weapons opened up. Missiles, railguns, and laser cannons fired at the advancing aliens. Most of the shots bounced harmlessly off the Vornathi shields. A few missiles got through, causing minor damage, but nothing significant. The aliens kept coming, methodically targeting human ships one by one. Danny Cruz piloted the Harbinger with desperate skill, dodging and weaving through space. A Vornathi beam passed so close it scorched their hull plating. That was too close, he muttered, sweat running down his face. Keep us moving, Jake ordered. Then on the fleet channel he shouted, "Execute pattern Morrison 7. It was a tactic they had practiced but never expected to use. Human ships suddenly broke formation and scattered in all directions. The Vornathi, confused by this chaotic movement, hesitated for just a moment. That moment was all the humans needed. 3 small fighters dove straight at a Vornathi cruiser, firing everything they had. The alien ship's shields easily absorbed the damage, but the fighters didn't pull away. Instead, they kept coming, accelerating to maximum speed. At the last second, the pilots ejected in escape pods. The unmanned fighters, their reactors deliberately overloading, slammed into the Vornathi cruiser one after another. The first impact did nothing. The second caused the shields to flicker. The third fighter punched through the weakened shields and struck the hull. Its overloading reactor exploded in a massive blast of energy. The Vornathi cruiser shuddered, its hull cracking open. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship before it broke apart completely. For the first time in the battle, a Vornathi vessel had been destroyed. On his flagship, Zexthor watched in disbelief. Did they just sacrifice their own ships? Yes, Commander, his tactical officer replied. They deliberately crashed them into our vessel. Zexthor felt a cold sensation run through his body. What kind of species used suicide attacks in the first engagement? This was supposed to be a simple cleanup operation, not a desperate battle. The fighting continued. Amy noticed something in the battle pattern. Captain, the Vornathi ships are staying close together. If we can get them to fire at us while we're near each other. Jake understood immediately. All ships execute scatter pattern around enemy formation. Make them chase you. Human vessels darted between the alien ships like insects harassing predators. The Vornathi fired constantly, their powerful beams cutting through space. But the humans were small and fast, and in their frustration, the aliens began making mistakes. One Vornathi ship fired at a human fighter, just as another alien vessel moved into the line of fire. The beam intended for the fighter struck the friendly ship instead, punching through its shields and causing significant damage. The same thing happened twice more as the battle descended into chaos. Danny saw an opportunity. A massive field of debris from destroyed stations floated nearby. Captain, I've got an idea. It's crazy, but it might work. Tell me, Jake said, that debris field. I can fly through it. The Vornathi ships are too big and their sensors too precise. They'll either have to slow down or risk hitting something. It was insane. The debris field was full of spinning metal fragments, some as large as cars. Flying through it at combat speed would be almost impossible, but Danny was the best pilot in the fleet. Do it, Jake ordered. The Harbinger dove toward the debris field with 3 Vornathi ships in pursuit. Danny's hands moved across the controls with incredible speed, threading the ship through gaps that seemed impossible. Metal fragments scraped against their hull. Alarms screamed warnings, but they made it through. The Vornathi ships tried to follow. Their advanced computers calculated trajectories and predicted paths. But the debris was too random, too chaotic. The lead alien ship struck a large piece of wreckage at high speed. Its shields absorbed the impact, but the collision threw it off course. It spun into another piece of debris, then another. By the time it regained control, it had fallen far behind. The other 2 Vornathi ships tried to go around the field, but human fighters were waiting on the other side. The aliens found themselves caught between the debris and enemy fire. One ship took critical damage and retreated. The other fought on but was soon overwhelmed. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it finally ended, humanity had lost 22 ships, but the Vornathi had lost 9 with 6 more badly damaged. For an empire that expected easy victory, it was a shocking result. On the Harbinger's bridge, the surviving crew was too exhausted to celebrate. They had survived, but barely. Jake looked at the casualty reports with a heavy heart. Hundreds of people dead, people he had known and trained with. Amy put a hand on his shoulder. We hurt them, sir. They didn't expect that. No, Jake agreed quietly. They didn't. On his flagship, Commander Zexthor was no longer laughing. He stared at the battle reports in silence. 9 ships destroyed, 6 damaged. Against primitives who should have been swept aside in minutes. His officers waited nervously for his response. Finally, Zexthor spoke. Send a message to command. Request reinforcements, and tell them— He paused, the words difficult to say. Tell them we may have underestimated the humans. It was the first time in his career that Zexthor had ever requested backup. The humans had done something no other species had managed. They had made him doubt his own superiority, and that made them dangerous. 3 days passed after the first battle. Commander Zexthor did not attack again. Instead, he waited for reinforcements and studied everything his computers had recorded about human tactics. He watched the battle recordings over and over, analyzing every move the humans made. He began to see patterns. The humans fought without regard for their own safety. They valued unpredictability over efficiency. They sacrificed valuable resources if it meant damaging the enemy. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to get more dangerous when things looked hopeless. Other species surrendered when the odds were against them. Humans got angry and fought harder. Zexthor's reinforcements arrived on the 4th day, 100 additional ships bringing his total fleet to over 260 vessels. With this force, there would be no mistakes. He planned a massive simultaneous assault on Earth's orbital defenses and major cities. The humans would be crushed before they could use their strange tactics. On Earth, Colonel Lisa Grant studied the same battle data from a different perspective. She was a military strategist who had spent 20 years planning for conflicts that never happened. Now she faced the biggest conflict in human history, and she had to find a way to win it with inferior forces. Lisa sat in an underground command center surrounded by screens showing data from every sensor, satellite, and ship humanity had. She had barely slept since the invasion began. Her eyes were red with exhaustion, but her mind was sharp. "They're too predictable," she muttered, staring at the Vornathi fleet movements. Her assistant, a young officer named Marcus Webb, looked confused. "Ma'am, they have superior weapons, shields, and numbers. How does predictability matter?" "Because they rely on their technology," Lisa explained. "Watch how they move. Every formation is textbook perfect. Every attack follows a logical pattern. They fight like computers because their computers do most of the fighting for them." She pointed at the screen. "They've never faced an enemy that doesn't follow the rules." Marcus began to understand. "So we break the rules." "Exactly." Lisa pulled up a map of Earth. "I have an idea. It's insane and it might kill us all. But it's our only chance," she explained her plan. Marcus listened with growing horror. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. "Colonel, that's actually crazy." "I know," Lisa said with a slight smile. "Get me a channel to the Harbinger. I need to talk to Captain Morrison." On the Harbinger, Jake listened to Lisa's plan with the same mixture of horror and admiration that Marcus had shown. "You want us to lead them into Earth's atmosphere?" "Upper atmosphere, yes," Lisa confirmed through the communication link. "We've been modifying the weather satellites. Helen Park, one of our best scientists, figured out how to turn them into giant electromagnetic pulse generators. If we can get the Vornathi fleet close enough to Earth, we can hit them with an EM storm that will fry their advanced systems." Amy, listening nearby, shook her head. "Their ships can handle atmosphere. They'll just shoot us down." "Not if their systems are malfunctioning," Lisa countered. "The EM pulse will be massive, covering hundreds of kilometers. Their shields will fail. Their weapons will go offline, their navigation will be scrambled, and that's when we hit them with everything we have." "What about our ships?" Jake asked. "Won't the EM pulse affect us too?" "Yes," Lisa admitted. "That's why we're retrofitting as many ships as we can with analog backup systems. Old-fashioned controls that don't rely on computers. It won't be pretty, but you'll be able to fly and fight." The Vornathi, on the other hand, have no analog backups. Their technology is too advanced to function without computers. Jake thought about it. The plan was dangerous. Getting the Vornathi to chase them into Earth's atmosphere meant coming very close to the planet, where any damaged ship could fall and crash. But Lisa was right. It might be their only chance. "We'll do it," Jake decided. "When?" "They're going to attack tomorrow at dawn, Earth time. Be ready." The next morning came too quickly. Zexthor watched the sunrise over Earth from his flagship. It was actually quite beautiful, he thought. Too bad it would be one of the last peaceful sunrises this planet would see. "All ships assume attack formation," he ordered. "Today we end this resistance." The Vornathi fleet moved forward in perfect formation. On Earth, alarms sounded across every city. People ran to shelters. Soldiers manned their positions. Everyone knew this was the day that would decide humanity's fate. The human fleet met them in orbit, but this time there were fewer ships. Jake commanded only 18 vessels, all that remained of Earth's space forces. They looked pitifully small against the massive alien armada. "All ships," Jake broadcast. "Remember the plan. Make them chase us. Lead them down. Don't engage unless you have to. The Vornathi opened fire. Human ships scattered, but instead of trying to fight, they retreated toward Earth. Zexthor frowned. Were they running? That didn't seem like the humans he had fought before. They're fleeing toward their planet, his tactical officer reported. Pursue them, Zexthor ordered. Don't let them reach the surface. Destroy them all. The Vornathi fleet accelerated, chasing the human ships down into Earth's atmosphere. It was a pursuit that should have ended quickly. The alien ships were faster and could catch the humans easily, but the humans kept just out of reach, flying desperately toward their planet. Zexthor's fleet followed them down through the orbital layer, into the upper atmosphere where the sky began to change from black to blue. Now, Lisa shouted in the command center. All around the planet, modified weather satellites activated simultaneously. They had been positioned carefully over the past few days, hidden among the debris and normal satellites. Now they released their stored energy all at once. A massive electromagnetic pulse exploded through the upper atmosphere, invisible, but devastating. The Vornathi fleet flew directly into it. On Zexthor's flagship, every screen went dark. Emergency lights flickered on. His chair's control panel sparked and went dead. Through the viewport, he could see other ships in his fleet drifting, their engines dead or sputtering. Report, he shouted. His officers struggled with non-responsive controls. All systems failing, Commander. Navigation is down. Weapons offline. Shields collapsing. Zexthor felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. The human ships turned around. Their systems were damaged too, but unlike the Vornathi, they had prepared for this. Backup controls came online, crude but functional. Danny Cruz switched to manual flying, his hands on physical controls instead of touchscreens. All ships, weapons free, Jake ordered. Hit them now while they're defenseless. Human ships opened fire with every weapon they had. Missiles struck Vornathi hulls that no longer had shields. Railgun rounds punched through armor that was designed to stop energy weapons, but was vulnerable to simple metal projectiles. Laser cannons burned into exposed systems. From Earth's surface, hidden railgun emplacements fired upward. These were old weapons, simple and low-tech. Exactly the kind of thing the Vornathi had dismissed as primitive. But without their shields, the alien ships were vulnerable. The railgun rounds struck with devastating force, tearing through hulls and destroying ships. Zexthor watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. Ships exploded around him. Others lost control and began falling toward Earth's surface, burning up in the atmosphere or crashing into the ground. His beautiful, perfect fleet was being destroyed by weapons that were centuries out of date. Get us out of here, he screamed. His flagship's emergency engines finally responded, damaged but working. It began climbing away from Earth, along with perhaps 60 other ships that had managed to restart their systems. The rest of his fleet, over 200 vessels, were either destroyed or falling helplessly toward the planet below. Jake watched the Vornathi retreat. Don't pursue. Let them go. Amy looked at him in surprise. Sir, we have them on the run. And if we chase them, they'll recover their systems and destroy us, Jake replied. We won the battle. Don't throw it away trying to win the war in one day. The Harbinger and the other surviving human ships pulled back, returning to a safe distance. Below them, the wreckage of the Vornathi fleet fell like shooting stars, burning up in Earth's atmosphere. In the command center, Lisa Grant allowed herself to smile for the first time in days. We did it. Marcus was already working on casualty reports. We lost 7 ships, but we destroyed or disabled over 200 of theirs. What about their commander? Escaped. His flagship and about 60 others made it out. Lisa's smile faded slightly. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. Zexthor would return, and next time he would be ready for their tricks. Commander Zexthor's flagship limped away from Earth, its hull scarred and its systems barely functioning. Around him, the remnants of his once proud fleet struggled to maintain formation. Of the 260 ships he had commanded just hours ago, only 63 remained operational. The rest were debris orbiting Earth or burning wreckage scattered across the planet's surface. In his command chamber, Zexthor sat in darkness. The main lights were still offline. Emergency power kept life support working, but little else. He stared at nothing, his mind replaying the battle over and over. How had this happened? How had he lost so badly to such a primitive species? His communication officer finally managed to restore the long-range transmitter. "Commander, we're receiving a priority message from the High Command." Zexthor dreaded what was coming, but he had no choice. "Put it through." The face of Supreme Commander Vextil appeared on the emergency screen. She was old even by Vornathi standards, with scales that had turned almost white with age. Her eyes, all four of them, glowed with cold fury. "Explain yourself, Zexthor," she said quietly. That quiet tone was more frightening than any shouting could be. "The humans were more resourceful than anticipated," Zexthor began. "They—" "You lost 200 ships to primitives who can barely leave their own planet," Vextil interrupted. "You, who have conquered 47 worlds without significant losses, were beaten by a species that fights with chemical rockets and metal bullets." Zexthor had no defense. The facts spoke for themselves. "Yes, Supreme Commander. The Council is demanding your execution for incompetence." Zexthor closed his eyes. He had expected this. "However," Vextil continued, "I convinced them to give you one more chance. You will return to Earth with the full armada, 5,000 ships. You will obliterate every human military installation, every city, every sign of resistance, and this time you will not underestimate them. Do you understand?" "Yes, Supreme Commander. You have 1 month to prepare. We are pulling ships from other sectors. The entire Empire will see what happens to species that resist us. Don't fail again, Zexthor. There will be no third chance." The transmission ended. Zexthor sat alone in the darkness, thinking about what he had learned. The humans weren't just lucky. They were genuinely dangerous in ways he had never encountered before. He spent the next 3 weeks studying everything his computers had recorded. Every battle, every human tactic, every decision they had made. Slowly, he began to understand what made humans different. They didn't have one military doctrine. They had hundreds developed by different nations with different cultures and different ways of thinking about war. The Vornathi fought with perfect efficiency because their military had one unified approach. Humans fought with chaos because every group had its own ideas. Humans also had a strange relationship with their own lives. They valued survival, certainly, but they valued freedom and dignity more. Other species would surrender to preserve their existence. Humans would rather die than live as slaves. It was illogical but consistent. Most importantly, humans were creative in ways that bordered on madness. The Vornathi had technology and logic. Humans had imagination and desperation. That combination made them unpredictable and extraordinarily dangerous. Zexthor realized something that disturbed him deeply. He had stopped laughing at humanity. Somewhere during his analysis, he had begun to respect them, not as equals, certainly, but as worthy opponents. On Earth, there was no celebration. Jake Morrison stood in the memorial hall where the names of the dead were displayed. Hundreds of names from the space battles. Thousands more from the cities that had been hit by falling debris or stray weapons fire. The victory had been costly. Amy found him there. "The repair crews are working around the clock. We should have maybe 30 ships ready in a few weeks." "It won't be enough," Jake said quietly. "He'll come back with everything he has. We got lucky with the EM pulse trap. That won't work twice." "I know." Amy stood beside him looking at the names. "Lisa wants to see you. She says it's important." In the command center, Lisa Grant looked even more exhausted than before, but her eyes were bright with a new idea. Beside her stood Helen Park, the scientist who had developed the EM pulse technology. Helen was short with dark hair and glasses, and she looked excited. "We have a problem and possibly a solution," Lisa said without preamble. "The problem is that the Vornathi will return with overwhelming force. We can't beat them in a straight fight. The solution is that we don't try to beat them at all." Jake frowned. "I don't understand," Helen jumped in, speaking quickly. "During the battle, we captured significant amounts of data from damaged Vornathi ships. Wreckage that crashed on Earth. We've been analyzing their technology, and Marcus here helped us crack their communication protocols." Marcus Webb, sitting at a nearby console, nodded. "We can't build their technology. It's too advanced. But we can understand it. More importantly, we can hack it." "We found something interesting in their databases," Lisa continued. "The Vornathi Empire isn't as stable as they want everyone to think. They have enemies. Other species they've conquered but not fully subdued. Rivals who want to take them down but are too afraid to act alone." Jake began to understand. "You want to turn this into a bigger war?" "Exactly," Lisa confirmed. "We can't beat the Vornathi alone. But if their other enemies see that humanity can hurt them, that the mighty empire can be challenged, maybe they'll join in. We need to make the Vornathi look weak. How do we do that? Amy asked. Helen smiled. We found a damaged Vornathi scout ship that crashed relatively intact. With the data we've collected, we think we can repair it enough to broadcast on their military frequencies. We could send messages to other alien species, revealing information about Vornathi military installations, fleet movements, strategic weaknesses. You want to start an interstellar war, Jake said slowly. We're already in one, Lisa replied. We're just trying to make sure we're not fighting it alone. Besides, we need time. Time to build more ships, develop better weapons, prepare better defenses. Every day we can delay their next attack is a day we can use to get stronger. Jake thought about it. The plan was risky. It could backfire in dozens of ways. But Lisa was right about one thing. They needed time and they needed help. Do it, he decided, but make sure we're ready for the consequences. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus and Helen worked almost non-stop on the captured Vornathi ship. It was badly damaged, but they managed to get its communication systems operational. Using the protocols they had decoded, they prepared several broadcasts designed to damage the Vornathi Empire's reputation and reveal strategic information to their enemies. Meanwhile, Jake and Amy worked on training new pilots and crew members. The battle had killed many experienced people, and they needed replacements quickly. Young men and women volunteered by the thousands. Not everyone could be accepted, but those who were trained with desperate intensity. Danny Cruz became an instructor, teaching other pilots his unorthodox flying techniques. Don't fly like a computer, he told his students. Fly like a human. Be unpredictable. Take risks. The aliens expect logic, so give them chaos. Around the world, factories that had built cars and computers were converted to build weapons and ship components. Governments that had argued for centuries found themselves working together with single purpose. Humanity was uniting in a way it never had before, forged together by the threat of extinction. 4 weeks after his defeat, Commander Zexthor led the full Vornathi armada back toward Earth. 5,000 ships, the largest fleet the Empire had assembled in a century. Every vessel was checked and double-checked. Every system had backups. Every commander knew the plan. They would not be tricked again. They would not underestimate the humans again. This time Earth would fall. Zexthor watched the blue planet grow larger on his screens. He felt no satisfaction, no anticipation of victory. He felt only a strange sense of unease. The humans had surprised him twice. What if they had another surprise waiting? He shook off the thought. With 5,000 ships, no surprise could save them. This time, humanity would learn that resistance was futile. But as his fleet entered the solar system, Zexthor received a message from home. Commander, we're under attack. Multiple enemy fleets have struck our border worlds. The Kelthax, the Ruum, and the Darvashi have all declared war on us simultaneously. They're hitting our supply lines and attacking our weaker colonies. High Command is demanding you return half the armada immediately. Zexthor felt ice in his veins. The humans had done something. They had somehow turned this into a larger war. He stared at Earth through the viewport and realized that he had underestimated them yet again. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting to hurt the entire Empire. Commander Zexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, facing an impossible choice. Behind him, the largest armada the Vornathi Empire had assembled in generations waited for orders. Ahead of him, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, unaware of the destruction that was about to fall upon it. And in his communication console, urgent messages from High Command demanded he split his forces to defend the Empire from attacks on 3 different fronts. Commander, what are your orders? His second-in-command asked nervously. Zexthor didn't answer immediately. He was thinking about everything that had happened since he first arrived at Earth. The humans had been underestimated at every turn, and every time they had found a way to make the Empire pay for that mistake. Now they had done something that no other conquered species had managed. They had turned the Empire's enemies against it. How did they do it? He wondered aloud. Sir? His officer asked, confused. The humans. How did they coordinate with our enemies? How did they even know who to contact? Zexthor pulled up the intelligence reports. 3 species had attacked simultaneously, hitting the most vulnerable points in the Empire's territory. That wasn't a coincidence. The humans had somehow accessed classified military information and shared it. His tactical officer provided the answer. Commander, we've detected broadcasts from the surface of Earth. They're using Vornathi communication protocols. We believe they've been sending data to other species for the past 2 weeks. They hacked our systems, Zexathor said, almost impressed despite himself. With their primitive technology, they managed to crack our military codes. What do we do, Commander? His second-in-command pressed. High Command is demanding half the Armada return immediately. Zexathor made his decision. Send 2,500 ships back to defend our territories. The rest will continue with the assault on Earth. Sir, is 2,500 ships enough? The humans have shown— I know what they've shown, Zexathor interrupted sharply. But the Empire is under attack. We have no choice. As half the Armada began turning away, Zexathor prepared to address the remaining forces. But before he could give the order to attack, a new transmission came through. This one was on an open channel, broadcast across multiple frequencies so that not just the Vornathi would hear it, but anyone listening in this region of space. A human appeared on the screen, Captain Jake Morrison, the commander Zexathor had faced in battle before. The human looked tired but determined. Commander Zexathor, Jake began, I know you're preparing to attack. I know you have thousands of ships and we have maybe 40. The smart thing would be to surrender. But I think you've learned by now that humans don't always do the smart thing. Zexathor listened, curious despite himself. We're not going to surrender, Jake continued. We're going to fight with everything we have. And yes, you'll probably win. Your ships are better, your weapons are stronger, and you have more of everything. But here's what you need to understand. We're going to make you pay for every kilometer of space, every inch of our planet. We're going to fight so hard that every other species in the galaxy will hear about it. Jake paused, then leaned closer to the camera. They'll hear about how the mighty Vornathi Empire needed 5,000 ships to conquer one primitive world. They'll hear about how long it took you, how many ships you lost. They'll hear that humanity, a species that never even met aliens before, made the great Vornathi bleed. On his bridge, Zexathor felt uncomfortable. The human was right. Even if he won, the cost would be enormous, and everyone would know about it. So come ahead, Commander, Jake finished. Attack us. Destroy us. But know that you'll be proving to the entire galaxy that your empire isn't as strong as you claim. Every enemy you have will see that you're vulnerable, and they'll come for you just like you came for us. The transmission ended. Zexathor stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. The human had maneuvered him into a trap without firing a single shot. If he attacked with overwhelming force, he proved the Empire needed massive resources to handle one primitive world. If he held back, he looked weak and indecisive. Either way, he had lost. His communication officer interrupted his thoughts. Commander, we're receiving new transmissions. Multiple alien species are broadcasting messages. They're mocking us, sir, saying that the great Vornathi can't even defeat humans without calling for help. Zexathor felt anger rise in his chest, but also something else. Resignation. The humans had already won the propaganda war, and they had done it before the actual battle even began. Sir, incoming message from High Command, another officer announced. Supreme Commander Vextil appeared on screen, and she did not look pleased. Zexathor, what is this transmission I'm hearing from the humans? The entire sector is laughing at us. They're attempting psychological warfare, Zexathor explained. And it's working, Vextil said coldly. I'm receiving reports that 3 more species are considering joining the coalition against us. The Kelthax are advancing faster than expected. Our colonies are in danger. We cannot afford to waste resources on this one planet. Zexathor couldn't believe what he was hearing. You want me to withdraw? No, I want you to make a decision. Is Earth worth the cost of defending the rest of the Empire? It was the question Zexathor had been avoiding. He looked at Earth through the viewport, a small planet with stubborn inhabitants who refused to accept the inevitable. They had hurt the Empire more with information and clever tactics than entire fleets had managed in open battle. Before he could answer, his tactical officer shouted a warning. Commander, detecting launches from Earth's surface and orbital positions. Multiple missiles incoming. Shields up, return fire, Zexathor ordered automatically. But the missiles didn't target his fleet. Instead, they spread out in a wide pattern, each one broadcasting on different frequencies. Zexathor realized what they were doing. They're sending out more data, more intelligence about our fleet positions, our tactical plans, our weaknesses. Helen Park, watching from Earth's command center. smiled grimly. They can shoot them down, but not all of them. And every second they're broadcasting, more species are receiving our information. Marcus Webb monitored the alien communications networks they had hacked. It's working. We're detecting increased chatter among the Vornathi's enemies. They're coordinating attacks based on our data. Lisa Grant stood beside them, watching the tactical display. We're not strong enough to beat them in combat, but we can hurt them in other ways. Make them choose between pride and survival. On the Harbinger, Jake waited for the alien response. Amy stood beside him, nervous but ready. Danny kept the ship ready to move at a moment's notice. Every human ship was prepared for the attack that would surely come, but it didn't come. Instead, Zexthor's voice came through on a direct channel. Captain Morrison, I wish to speak with you privately. Jake was surprised but accepted the communication. The alien commander appeared on his screen, and Jake was struck by how tired he looked. You've beaten me, Zexthor said simply. Not with weapons or ships, but with information and reputation. If I attack you now, I weaken my empire. If I retreat, I show weakness. You've given me a choice where I lose either way. Jake didn't gloat. He understood that this was a dangerous moment. So what will you do? I'm withdrawing my fleet, Zexthor replied. Not because you've defeated us militarily. You haven't. But because the cost of conquering Earth is too high right now. My empire is under attack from multiple species, attacks that you helped coordinate. I must defend what we already have before trying to take more. He paused, then added, But you should know something, Captain. Other species will come to Earth. Some will want to conquer you like we did. Others will want to trade or form alliances. You've announced your presence to the galaxy in the loudest way possible. Your isolation is over. We'll be ready, Jake said simply. I believe you will, Zexthor said, and there was respect in his voice. Your species is dangerous in ways we never anticipated. You don't have the strongest weapons or the fastest ships, but you have something that most species lose when they become advanced. You have the will to fight against impossible odds. You have creativity born from desperation, and you have the courage to sacrifice everything for your freedom. He straightened in his chair. I came here laughing at humanity. I leave with respect for you. That's more than any other species has earned from me. Use the time we're giving you to prepare, Captain Morrison. 'Cause eventually someone will come back, and they might not be as willing to retreat as I am. The transmission ended. Jake watched as the massive Vornathi fleet began to turn away from Earth, their ships slowly accelerating toward the outer system, and then into faster-than-light travel. Within an hour, the sky was clear of alien vessels for the first time in over a month. In the command center, Lisa allowed herself to collapse into a chair. We did it. We actually did it. We survived, Marcus corrected. That's not the same as winning. For now, it's enough, Helen said quietly. Around the world, people emerged from shelters to see the alien fleet departing. There was crying and cheering, relief and exhaustion. Humanity had faced extinction and somehow talked its way out of it. On the Harbinger, Jake stood looking at Earth through the viewport. Amy joined him, and together they watched their home planet in